I remember it all so clearly. The way it began, so innocent, yet it ended in ways none of us could have ever imagined. I was just a servant at the palace, but I saw it all, the love, the fear, and the tragedy that followed. Prince Adebayo, the only son of our king, was a man every woman in the kingdom desired. He was handsome, tall, with the posture of a warrior. But he wasn't just a prince of war, his heart was gentle. He treated the palace staff with kindness, and everyone respected him for it. One day, while hunting in the outskirts of the kingdom, Prince Adebayo's life took an unexpected turn. It was there, by the riverbank, that he first saw her, Kemi. She was just a poor orphan girl, collecting firewood with her delicate hands. Her beauty was not of the usual kind. She had a soft but strong face, and her eyes held stories of hardship. She didn't belong in the circles of royalty, and yet, in that moment, it was as though she had cast a spell over him. The prince was captivated. He approached her, but she didn't recognize him as royalty. She saw only a man, and he loved that. From that day, Prince Adebayo found excuses to visit the outskirts, pretending to hunt, but always ending up by the riverbank, speaking with Kemi. Their love grew, but it was a forbidden love, and I knew it. I could see it in the way Prince Adebayo snuck out of the palace. He didn't tell anyone about Kemi, for he feared the wrath of the king. A royal prince could never marry a commoner, especially not an orphan with no name and no wealth. The kingdom would never accept it. But things took a darker turn as rumors spread in the village. People began whispering about the prince and the mysterious girl he visited. It wasn't long before the king heard of it. When he called Prince Adebayo to the throne room, the air was thick with tension. I was there, standing by the side, watching. The king's voice boomed through the hall. "I have heard troubling things, my son. Is it true that you have been meeting with a peasant girl?" Prince Adebayo stood tall, his eyes burning with defiance. "Yes, father. It is true. I love her." There was a pause so deep it felt like the air was holding its breath. Then, the king's face turned red with fury. "You will never marry her. She is not worthy of you, nor of this throne." The terror that followed was unimaginable. The king sent his guards to find Kemi, to banish her from the kingdom. But the prince, desperate to protect her, ran away to the riverbank to warn her. I followed, hiding in the shadows. I watched as Prince Adebayo reached Kemi, his voice trembling with fear. "We have to leave. The king knows about us." But it was too late. As they prepared to run, the king's guards arrived. The leader of the guards, a man as cold as the night, stepped forward. "By order of the king, this girl must leave the kingdom. She is not fit for the prince." Prince Adebayo stood in front of Kemi, shielding her. "I will not let you take her." What happened next haunts me to this day. A struggle broke out. The prince fought bravely, but he was no match for the armed men. In the chaos, one of the guards unsheathed his sword, and in the midst of the fight, Kemi was struck. She fell to the ground, her eyes wide with shock, blood staining her clothes. The forest grew silent. Prince Adebayo dropped to his knees beside her, cradling her in his arms. She whispered something to him, something I couldn't hear, and then she was gone. The prince let out a scream so full of pain that it echoed through the trees. He had lost the only woman he had ever loved, all because of the kingdom's rules and his father's pride. When the king heard what had happened, even he was stricken with grief. But it was too late. The prince left the palace that night and never returned. Some say he wandered the wilderness, searching for peace that would never come. And as for me, I still remember the way he looked at her, the love in his eyes, and the terror in his heart when he lost her. It was a love that should have been, but never had the chance to flourish. That is the story of Prince Adebayo and Kemi, the orphan girl who stole his heart. A love that was doomed from the start, filled with hope, suspense, and unbearable sorrow.